So we left off on lot width, which, if I'm not mistaken, we were gonna have, Allison was gonna get some.
Just gonna get some more information
All
for
right,
us, yeah.
so why don't we just,
Jump over
why don't
that.
we jump over lot width, try and get some easy ones done, just make sure we, keep track in our little books what we did and what we didn't do, so we don't go back next week. So the next thing would be major appliance. The largest unit. Again, we could pick everything apart, but I don't think we need to do anything with that. Everybody good with that one?
Yep.
Any no's? Good?
Good.
Major appliance store, a retail establishment containing over 15,000 square feet of retail floor space, displaying and selling a significant portion of its products as major appliances. Significant portion for this use shall be defined as occupying at least 80% of the retail display space and generating over 80% of the volume in revenue or products. So, you know,
Is that site specific to the Raymore and Flanagan? Is that why this was done, building down on Elm Street?
oh, the old Manny's?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I think. That was a big thing with the parking. Just so that
Right,
you
so,
know.
and again, we need Allison, because I think that must get referenced somewhere.
somewhere else.
Right.
For parking or
Right.
something.
It's so
for them to-
specific.
For them to do that.
Yeah. that's
The,
so-
you know, like Home Depot would not be considered that. They sell, they probably sell more than the old Manny's building, but yet it's not considered that. So I don't know, I'm assuming it's for parking reduction.
That's what I think it is too, because there's a major difference between furniture and appliance. When it comes to parking, they say. Remember that?
I kinda do. It was, and I think you're right, it was the one on Elm Street,
Yeah.
which is now the,
It's-
there she is, she'll have an answer for us.
It was down for 2 weeks.
The major appliance store, as a definition, it's got some numbers in there. Is that because it's referenced to parking somewhere? And I think it goes back to
Yeah.
that old Manny's building?
I don't know where it goes back to, but yeah, the thought is that if it's over a certain amount of square feet, doing parking per 200 square feet doesn't make sense. They have way too much parking. But like a boutique furniture store, for example, 1 per 200 or whatever we have, is more reasonable.
Okay, so are you guys okay, are you okay with the definition as it's read?
Yeah, I think we already went through that, didn't we?
Huh? Did
Furniture store?
we? No, major appliance.
Or, that's, yeah, it seemed pretty much the same
Major
thing.
appliance is 15,000 square feet, you gotta have 80% of it displaying appliances.
Already.
I don't think you're gonna be able to make changes, because it's gonna go back.
Yeah.
We did it for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it is reflected in the parking area.
You guys don't have any problem with that?
Oh.
No? Good. Everybody wanna move on? Any no's? You guys gotta speak up, man, I can't hear you. No no's.
No no's.
Manufacturing, a facility primarily for heavy or light industry and the manufacturing or assembling of a product including processing, blending, fabrication, assembly, treatment, and package.
They're both the same.
Incidental activities such as storage, offices, wholesale sales, retail sales, and employee-only recreation and eating facility, oh, okay. Recreation facilities, eating. That's pretty cut and dry. Anybody got anything on that one? Allison?
The only thing we might want to consider at some point is if you want to break out heavy versus light. I don't know if you will, but I don't know that it's worth doing right now, but when we get to the use table, it might be something that you consider.
You know, and I don't think there's any reason when we get to the use table, we can't go back to the
No, there
definition
isn't.
and change it.
Right.
Alright, so let's leave that one for now. You know, what, let's finish the M's and then, did you do anything on the lot width? You were gonna bring some,
I did, I looked and I found some
well, let's go do that then.
interesting
Interesting.
examples. Auburn, Mass, they allow them by special permit. I don't know that that's really,
Allow what, oh, the flag lots?
yeah, they call them hammerhead lots, same thing. They allow them by special permit with a set of criteria. So in their Residence A and Residence B districts, which aren't necessarily the same as ours, the lot area must be twice the usual lot size requirement. It's limited to single-family dwellings. The lot must contain an area in which a circle with the diameter equal to the normal frontage may be placed.
Right, so if you got 150-foot frontage, you gotta have a 150-foot circle.
That fits somewhere,
in there.
right, which
in
is
that-
What do you mean by
something-
somewhere? Because if you follow the diagram, I checked all of the cul-de-sac lots that I've done, and none of them comply.
Well,
According to the definition that the diagram that we're looking at now.
they were probably done before that. The diagram that's in here now is fairly new.
It's not in
It's
use.
not even.
It's not in use, it's new, but I mean, most of the cul-de-sac lots would not be legal if we use that circle definition. It doesn't do, it doesn't really talk about flag lots or chop lots or whatever you call them.
Right, this
But
is
the
this,
irregular shaped lots, I think need a little more definition than just a diagram, you know?
well, that's what this stuff is. It's,
But that's a flag lot specific.
oh, so you're saying irregular generally, not just flag
Right.
lots. I see.
Because lot width covers all of them, all of the lots.
So what is non-compliant about the cul-de-sac lots?
You can't fit the circle in there.
Anywhere on the lot.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
I
but
feel
it's
like
not
you should be
anywhere.
able to.
It's gotta be on the,
Nobody know what page that was?
49 of them.
okay,
diagram?
here's two cul-de-sacs on a new street.
Yeah, what do you got there? What page is that?
That's 49, I'm in the Terra book.
So these lots are in the RA zone, so there's 150 foot of
Width.
minimum width. So this is a 150-foot circle, and, none of them would comply. I forget what street this is, but anytime you see these lots that are cul-de-sac or on an arc, they all have narrow frontages, and by the time you get back to the setback, you're not gonna fit that circle in there.
So you're saying because the current definition requires the diameter of the circle to be placed on the minimum
Setback.
front setback, that's
Right.
the issue that you have.
It may be as simple as that. That may be the problem.
Can you show me, Sean?
These are cul-de-sac lots, okay? And this happens to be in a RA zone, so the minimum width is 150 feet. Now, these are already built on, they're legal lots under.
The frontage is 150 feet.
Lot width.
Lot width is,
Table, yeah.
what is frontage, 75?
Yeah, it's 75
Right,
throughout
so
the town, yeah.
65 and 10 is 75.
75.
Okay.
But there's no way these circles fit.
But she said the circle has to fit anywhere.
No, that's
inside.
Auburn's definition. What
Right,
he's saying
but
is.
if we
the-
adopted that version that she showed and put that to
I'm
use
just talking
there,
about the examples that we have in the
then the
back here,
circle
wherever they
would
are.
fit. So could you do it for flag lots and irregular lots? And have them
I think it might
adopt-
require different definitions.
Well, not necessarily, but what I do think is that irregular lots, I don't know. One of the other things I found that I don't think I printed was the rule of 22, that the irregularity factor, which is determined by comparing the lot area to the linear perimeter, can't be greater than a factor of 22 or whatever the number was.
Wow.
That's different.
But it basically means that you can't have like a really, like a lot of jagged, weird lines.
Right, because you
They
could,
gotta be pretty.
Because you could get very narrow and then flare out and get narrow again and flare back
That's what
out.
we were talking about last week, I remember
Right.
saying something, oh, they could just,
So that's another way to combat it if you don't wanna have, if you don't wanna say where the circle has to go, it's just that it has to fit somewhere, you could do that and have the lot
see, that's,
there and down there.
I think, and again, just talking out loud, if reading that definition for their hammerhead lot, almost use that as an irregular lot,
Yeah,
and then we decide how we want, or if we want. If we want flag lots, then we gotta put specific criteria for a flag lot, like how wide the drive, that little piece of land needs to be, how much buffers need to be there. The lot width, if they fit the circle in the back, it meets the criteria. Now, if we want flag lots to be twice the size, that's something we gotta
That's
talk about
totally
after.
different, yeah.
But to figure out lot width,
that's
the
like-
circle anywhere in the lot
Yeah,
makes sense.
and
But
it's
that's not
easy-
what this says.
No.
But we changed that to read, I mean, we can't make a ton of buildings non-conforming, that would be really bad.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that's,
Well, it just makes life a lot harder for them when they wanna,
When they wanna sell.
well, not when they wanna
when they
make
wanna
any
do
changes.
something,
Yeah.
you know, they wanna put an addition on or something, now they're screwed.
Well,
So how many parcels do you think we have like that, a ton? The
Well,
majority?
I'm gonna tell you that most of the subdivisions that were done in the last 25 or so years almost
Would
always
not
had,
meet that criteria?
almost always had cul-de-sac lots. The other problem is not so much in the new subdivision, but as I think I mentioned once before, you know, West Springfield is pretty compressed. So when you start building lots in between houses, because there's enough land area, it allows people who might have bought an extra lot to use for their retirement in the future. It allows them to be able to sell it and use it at a later date. There are many lots, there are several lots that were in compliance when the people bought them, or bought their side yard, and then the zoning laws changed, and it made them unusable, and that's not really fair, you know?
That's why I stopped doing the car dealership thing, because the same thing would have happened when I tried to bring that forth, it would have hurt other people in existence. So, we need to make sure that people can sell their properties.
Well,
And then it's
You're gonna
easy for you guys
be,
too.
there's gonna be probably more irregular shaped lots going forward than there are the perfect rectangular lot.
No, because there's
Did
less
you
and less
see
land,
this
you gotta,
Mm-hmm.
You
know,
gotta squeeze it in.
you gotta
So could we
squeeze them
make it
in.
So that circle has to fit like the definition that you found, would that work for you guys?
well, so, I mean, it's whatever the group wants. Right now, the lot width definition just says the diameter of the largest circle that can be inscribed within the lot boundaries. So all we have to do is remove the requirement that the diameter be placed along the minimum front setback.
So that,
You know, the other thing I think we've got, part of the reason we're doing this is because it's difficult. Decisions can be made either way. We're trying to make it as easy as we can so that there isn't controversy when someone goes to get a building permit or whatever. So should the building department have some input on what they think?
Well,
They thought the circles were fine.
they're
And
fine.
the circles are used, what I'm told, they're used in other areas in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I mean,
What
it's
if you have an
just,
exception for cul-de-sacs, you know, like carve out an exception, because it seems like most of them are in a cul-de-sac situation?
I think, it seems to me that there's two issues here. One is the so-called flag lots, and the other is lot width.
Mhm.
And I think they're different.
They're
They're
absolutely-
probably gonna be totally different definitions.
Absolutely.
so break them out into two separate.
Well,
ones.
let's deal with lot width right now. That's what we're on.
So lot width, let's do what Allison said, just take that off in there and the circle has to.
What would you take
Well-
off, the diagram or something?
I mean, I'm hesitant to do that only because
You can have a lot of narrow.
Yeah, and then it's,
Yeah,
everything
frontages.
could be a flag lot, and you're trying to avoid that. I think it needs to be left the way that it is, and then there needs to be a section under area requirements for exceptions.
Right.
Do your regular lots, and then have a subset for flag lots. So flag lots have a specific set of criteria, and then irregular lots have a specific set of
But
criteria.
that would be the criteria for irregular lots, right?
So did we define irregular lot separate?
No.
So now if you separate them and there's different criteria for irregular lot, now you gotta have a definition for irregular lot.
Or called
Doesn't
it,
fit the
or,
circle.
or you break it out that it's, you don't call them irregular, you call it flag lots and cul-de-sac lots. And,
Wouldn't any lot be irregular if it doesn't fit the definition where the
Right,
circle has to
exactly.
fit? So
Yeah,
that
so
would
that's
just-
why it's kind of-
Anything that doesn't.
Say that
fit-
again?
Anything that doesn't fit the current definition of where the circle fits would then be an irregular lot that needs to meet your additional
Oh,
criteria.
And there's probably more irregular lots than just in a cul-de-sac, right?
Oh God, my lot's so irregular. It's big,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's,
but does the circle fit in it?
Yeah.
oh, I could
It
put a
would.
couple circles.
Right, so it wouldn't be
wouldn't,
irregular because
right.
you can meet the normal criteria.
Well, what about a numeric section where there's not a lot of land and there's a lot of irregular lots?
They're
They
not
wouldn't be
necessarily
considered
irregular, they're substandard.
Right. The merit section, I bet you most of those lots are all rectangles.
Yes, pretty much
Squares
all
are
of them.
rectangles, you know what I
It was
mean?
laid
It's
out like
cut
a
and
grid.
dry.
Yeah, so they're not irregular, they're just substandard.
So,
I think for the, if I understand the building department, the struggle basically is lot width. And the way that they have to do it now, I guess they're not that crazy about it. It would
Well-
be nice to have a simpler way, but
It's-
I just think you gotta be careful that you're not eliminating a lot of potential land use
Well, and-
going forward.
Bill, the other problem is, some people don't like flag lots.
I understand.
So we're gonna, you know, we can't,
Yeah.
us as a group gotta decide whether or not, you know, flag lots are gonna be allowed, which I think if the criteria is stiff enough, I don't have a problem with it. So I think what happens is we try to create a definition that might eliminate flag lots, so.
And I think
agree that
that's a
there's
mistake,
two-
yeah.
Oh, I do too. I think,
Yeah.
you know, I think flag lots can be a nightmare if they're not done right,
Yep.
you know?
Well, but the thing is, they allow them right now, and they allow them to be like funnel flag lots where it has 75 feet and then
Right,
it does
which is-
get narrow.
which is
So they're not,
Yeah, you
right
might
now,
wanna
they're
change
not,
that.
they're not stopping it.
No, but.
Better define it.
Do a
Right.
separate definition for each of them, irregular
Well-
and then flag lots, and then we have just one.
Well,
You
yeah,
might be able to call a flag lot an irregular lot.
They're all irregular, but
Different
like I
criteria.
said, we're gonna just, I think you first come up with a reasonable definition of lot width, and then you move on from there. And get into lots that, see, I don't think a cul-de-sac lot is irregular. I use those as examples because they're pretty common. But, you know, there's a lot of flag lots out there that are very nice and are done very well, and there are some that are not. But, I mean, that's everywhere, you know? But I think the building department would like to have an easier definition of lot width. I just don't happen to think that these circles do it, because lot width, the definition of lot width is really gotta cover everything that goes on in town.
But if you broke it down into three, Allison, then do you think they would be able to use that?
Well, I don't think
Still
it,
with a circle?
I don't think it would be 3 different definitions. I think it would have to be an exceptions
Exceptions.
section. Yeah,
What about?
special
You-
standards and exceptions, something like
You mentioned
that.
something about special permit or whatever.
I don't think that it's,
It just becomes a nightmare.
I don't think it's worth it, because you guys don't like being in the position of having to tell people no, and it would put you in that position more often. Do you know what I mean? I think that you're more inclined to say yes to things, and this just throws people through a 4-week, 6-week process for nothing.
I think what we're doing here is we keep mixing
The
irregular
two.
flag and all that stuff. Let's try and just deal with lot width. So if you read that definition,
The definition isn't the issue, the diagram is the issue.
which diagram? Ours?
The one that's in here now.
Right.
Because the definition just says the diameter of the largest circle that can be inscribed in the lot boundaries.
What do they mean by largest circle? Because every
It's
zone,
not,
it goes
but this
zone by
isn't, this
zone.
is just how you determine what the lot width is, not what the requirement is.
Right, so, I mean, computerized, it's easy. You just keep enlarging the circle till it hits a boundary
Size.
somewhere.
Right.
Now that's the biggest circle you can put in there.
And does it or doesn't it meet the minimum requirement?
So you would put the circle in, and it's 128 feet. Well, if the minimum lot width is 150, doesn't meet it. Is that what we're trying to do?
Yes.
So dimension X then in this
Diameter.
Yep. Diameter.
diameter of a circle parallel to the street, and X is also the minimum lot width.
In a conforming lot.
Right. Right, within the area and
You know,
table, right?
The first diagram and the second diagram are pretty simple, easy to understand. But in theory, that third diagram on the top row, if you slid that circle down, it would now become bigger. So, like, if you measured that circle right now, it was 128 feet. If you slid that circle so that it just touches the property line, the lower property line, now that circle would get bigger and it could be 140-foot lot width.
But this is in compliance. The third one complies. The second one doesn't. But if you took the second one and moved it back 10 feet, then that sliver probably would be
But
within.
The second one was a mistake, remember that?
Right, but even if you don't look at the mistake, if you took that circle and slid it up the page,
Right, then
it would now fit, but
But what are you accomplishing by doing that? What does that say about lot width? Nothing.
I'm not sure why that number 2 is a mistake, because the diameter is in the width.
That, yours looks like it's right.
Well,
Yeah,
because the
yours-
circle
oh,
goes
Because the
outside.
circle, see mine,
See, mine's over,
it went on the outside of it.
Yeah, my circle's on the outside, but the diameter part is not on the outside.
Yeah, but the
Right.
whole circle's supposed to fit in there.
Oh.
the entire
I
circle
thought the
must,
definition or the
if you read
reading
number
was
4,
saying-
it says the entire circle must be within the boundaries of the lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both
Okay.
in front of the diameter
Okay.
and behind the diameter to the rear.
So one of the definitions
I just-
you were reading said.
What's the problem with saying the circle's gotta fit within the boundaries? Can't go out of the boundaries then. Get the largest circle you can
Well,
put in there.
because
What
then you have
happens
narrow.
there?
You
Huh?
could,
It
The
doesn't,
frontages would be sometimes too narrow,
Yeah.
couldn't you have that?
it
Well, you
doesn't,
gotta have a minimum frontage anyway.
right, but then it doesn't prevent, you can have, it doesn't prevent you from doing the same thing they're doing now with flag lots. You have the funnel,
No, no,
Right.
and then it goes back, and then
Right,
the circle
right.
fits in the back. And it can be as narrow as you want in between there. You have your 75 feet, you come in to like 25 even if you wanted, and then go up and come back.
Yeah.
And then you just plop the circle in the back.
Do we maintain like a minimum of the 75 all the way back?
That's what I had been proposing
That's what I
2
want.
meetings ago now, was that you have to have at least 80% of the frontage or the minimum lot width from the street line to the minimum
to the setback.
setback.
With the-
Well, see, I don't like the setback. I mean, that's only, what, 35 feet?
Well, it's 30, 40, and 40, I think.
Right,
Okay,
but
so
it,
let's just say we got a lot, 75-foot frontage. All they have to have is 75 or 80%, let's say 75 feet to where their setback is. Then they could shoot down to 25.
Yeah, it's,
It's a mess.
well,
Now
You-
theoretically, that driveway can be,
you can
2
do a
feet from the neighbor.
combination of the circle and the, or, no, I think the one I was looking at was, well, there was different ones. It can be minimum of 80% of the frontage to the minimum front setback, or it can be minimum of 80% of the frontage at all points on the lot. So at no point could you get less than 50 feet or whatever it is.
I mean, that won't work because lots come to a point,
Some of them, not all of them.
right? The back of the lot might come to a point.
Right, so
You know,
it
you could have
prevents
a
that
big
from
piece of
happening.
property and they wanna put triangled lots all the way through it where everybody's lot comes to a point in
Right.
the middle. No one really cares about the middle, it's the frontage and the
Right.
neighbor that's an issue.
Right,
So you wanna put a shed on your point,
You gotta meet the setbacks.
right?
The side lot, if you gotta be 20 feet off, you gotta be 20 feet off, and you gotta be 25 feet off the back, whatever those are. Now the shed could go in the point, but it's gotta
It's
have
gotta be a very big
Yeah.
point.
so
very big one.
what I keep coming
What's your
back to
point?
then is that the circle, the way that it is fine, you just need to create a series of exceptions with specific standards.
I think that's the easiest way to do it.
This, the proposed one is fine, or what we're using right now?
We'll leave that for that, right? Say it like
Hold
that.
on, you're saying this one is the
Yeah, you
proposed?
have, I mean, for any standard lot, you have to be able to fit the circle with the diameter at the minimum front yard setback. And then if you cannot do
So if the
that,
setback's 35 feet, the
The-
diameter circle,
It's 50. Or it's 100 in that zone. The 30-foot setback requires a 100-foot width.
so at 30 feet back, you have to have your 100 feet. And you
Okay.
have to be able to fit the circle.
So
Which
that actually works for
doesn't
that and
make-
I like it. What
I
happens
see
is
why
they
this
don't
isn't
like-
this isn't a mistake.
huh?
The second one isn't a mistake. You're not gonna, if the minimum front yard setback is only 30 feet and you need a 100-foot diameter circle, the
You're-
front of the circle's not gonna fit,
No, it isn't.
ever,
No, that-
pretty much. So
That's
this
the
isn't
problem.
a
It doesn't matter
mistake
whether it's
necessarily.
irregular or not.
But it says the entire circle must be within the boundaries.
Alright, so that's not gonna work.
This doesn't,
Well, this one here is one that we're building on Dewey. It's in a 100-foot zone, an RA2 zone. There's the 30-foot setback is right here, and there's the 100-foot circle, and it's into the road. I don't, and this is a pretty rectangular lot. I don't think that, I think the circles are a great idea to make it easy to compute, but they don't seem to work. They're, you know, when you go back 30 feet and then put a 50-foot radius circle in there, it's gonna be in the road.
It does, I think the back half of the circle has to stay in. Front half shouldn't have to, because.
To make it an oval?
Well, no, it's just you're only,
No, I know.
only the back half of the circle has to be within the lot boundaries, because if you have a 30-foot setback and a 100-foot diameter circle, 70 feet of that circle is gonna be in the
Not-
street.
right.
Or not 70, no, not quite,
20.
20.
Which is pretty much where he's at, about there.
Yeah.
So.
So
would this make
I don't
that
think we wanna make it
non-conforming?
so easy to compute that it's harder than what we do now, you know?
no more restrictive.
Yeah, more restrictive, harder for them to, well, yeah, well, it would be more, it'd be easier for them to compute.
And
Be
more
easy-
restrictive
and-
for
and then
you.
Easier for them to say to a landowner, you can't do it.
Well, like in this scenario, this circle is, we're only looking at the back portion,
Yep.
back half of the circle, it would be fine. And you probably could have shifted the property line so that this circle fit and that this one fit. You just didn't. Like, if you move the property line that way, you could have fit both circles. The back half of both circles.
I don't know, because, I
Would've-
mean, I don't have the whole subdivision here, but there are other lots too, actually, the dotted lines are the building areas, and building footprints where you can build in. So
Right.
those are the setbacks, and this is a 40-foot setback in this zone, and a 150-foot circle, it's restrictive. It would be more important,
Circle's an issue.
I suppose, if the circle fit in the sidelines. I agree with you, it's more important, it's less important whether the circle encroaches on the street itself. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
I agree.
Well, I mean, and even if it encroaches off the side, like this one does, that's
Yeah.
fine, as long as this back piece,
Which is where the
Fits.
building is gonna go.
right.
So let me ask you this, is that just your interpretation, or is that how everybody would see it?
I think that this was intentional, and I think that this is what was intended. That just the back half of the circle was what mattered, not the front, but I don't know, it's my
Yeah, well, that's not what they
Yeah,
typed,
that's
that's
not
the
what-
problem.
Right, and I think,
Both in front of the diameter and behind the diameter, so that's pretty specific.
yeah,
So if that is how you're interpreting it, maybe we get rid of the front and the back half has to.
Well, I mean, maybe we shouldn't be fixed on circles either. What's the issue, you know? They're trying to find out the lot width, so what they're trying to eliminate is someone measuring, you know, like if you had a lot, they don't want a lot,
Like maybe something.
well,
like
they don't
that.
wanna measure here,
Oh, like that.
like,
There's your 75 feet.
Here's two of them side by
Right.
side, right?
All right, now this one's no problem because there's 140 feet of frontage
Yeah,
anyways, it
this
pretty much
one is,
complies.
though.
But this is the typical flag lot. 75, you know, they carved out the 75 feet, and then the average, the mean width, according to the definition, is measured here.
right.
So your circle would fit here, but definitely not there.
Yeah, it's not gonna fit
yeah,
the
right now,
setback.
they do an average lot width. They don't-
Average width, yeah,
Yeah, which,
which is not really,
Like this one
Perfect.
here,
no.
this
No,
lot right
it's not.
here, how would they determine what the lot width is?
Yeah.
You know, if they're gonna go
well,
from
this
this
is the
point,
frontage here, yeah.
they're gonna go from, where's the frontage?
Here's
so-
the street.
So they're gonna go from this point to this point,
And
that's the longest, they're gonna say, oh, the lot width met,
Absolutely.
you know? So now if you had the circle in there, it's not gonna
What they
be the
do
same.
now, I think, and I think Allison can confirm this, they would take this measurement, and this measurement, and divide it by 3 and get the average lot width, right?
I have asked them and I never get the same answer
I
how
believe
it's
that's
done,
what they
so.
do.
And that's the problem, it's probably not done the same way every time.
But in defense of the existing,
Look at this lot.
I know,
No.
I know.
That's the kind of stuff
That's what you don't wanna do,
No.
because this isn't legitimate frontage.
No.
Or width. I mean, they got the
It's not
75-foot
legitimate.
frontage, but that's,
Is everybody aware
That's
of
somebody
what?
pushing it to the max.
I just wanna make sure everybody knows. Like this here is technically a flag lot, so they made it 75-foot frontage, and then they narrowed that down to whatever
funneled
that
it.
is, 20 feet. That's the kind of flag lot
Right.
Right.
that we don't want.
So there's
That's where
nothing
you
for-
get the 80% or the
Right.
75
This,
maintained.
this is another flag lot, it's not as bad, to me, I still think it should be minimum 75 all the way back, but it's another discussion, but this is disgusting.
Yeah.
But this is more
Decide
than
it.
the width of a
Yeah, I
car,
can see
that's like more than a driveway
it's just a driveway,
width.
really.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Driveway back to a house.
Which stinks for the neighbors.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, kid's playing out in his own yard, but he's like 2 feet from a car when it drives in, that's just crazy.
I see. Okay, so I have a question, I'm sorry I missed the meetings. I don't see anywhere in here where it talks about what the diameter of the circle's supposed to be, it just talks about circles and,
The width.
The circle, if someone comes in with a proposed lot, whoever's measuring puts a circle in there, and then,
any size of a circle.
no, it's gotta
The width
fit
of
within
the
the
zone,
boundary.
whatever the zone
I
is.
see, I don't see that that's referred to.
The second X, minimum lot width, number 3. Do you have the,
On your, right here, on that.
But depends on which way you're going, if you're trying to measure the lot
there's
width, or if you're
2
trying to see
dimensions
it.
for X.
Okay.
So, to your point, it's possible to add that a flag lot, again, doesn't address cul-de-sacs, that at no point can the lot be narrower than X amount of feet. So you could have, something like this would probably be fine, but the other one wouldn't be.
Well, no, the other one wouldn't.
Yeah. Which is fair. I mean, I think that,
The only. Can I write in this?
Go ahead.
I'm trying to think of one.
Or even like you said, the 80%, I mean, so you can narrow it down a little bit, but,
Right.
you know, that car width all the way back. And then
I'm trying to think,
Right.
so if you said at no point could the lot width, when you get into irregular lots, you're gonna have points where, like, I'm trying to think, of my lot is really weird, it goes like this, like
Yeah, but
this.
it's enormous, so it doesn't, like, that doesn't matter. If
Well, if you're putting a definition, that says at no point can the lot width be less than, so now this little piece, if it's only 10 feet wide, and this flag lot is 75 over here,
right, but you're not measuring that part.
well, that's gotta be clear. It's, the way you said it, at no point can the lot width be less than 75 feet, whatever that number is. Well, this
So then
thing,
for a flag lot on no point of the pole, I think the way that Amherst has it is that at no portion of the pole can be narrower than, I think they have like 50 feet or something. So then you get a little more specific if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
what is the pole,
The
That's-
pole is the narrow part,
the narrow part?
the part that connects to the street.
So everybody would understand that.
You'd have, you could put a diagram, or just-
Okay.
but,
Could we, as Mark was saying though, could we maybe make it as a percentage of the maximum, so that if for some reason you had a little dip, you don't say, oh, you're a foot short.
right, yeah, that's,
I mean, no matter what, if you put a percentage, which I'm gonna want a pretty, me personally, gonna want a pretty big percentage, but you're just, all you're doing is giving the property owner opportunity to maybe squeeze another lot in. So we really need to determine, yes, the frontage is 75 feet. So if they can do 75 feet and then shoot in 5 on each side, why are we making them 75-foot frontage? You know what I mean?
Right, I wasn't thinking so much as shooting in 5 on each side, I was thinking of it more of if you have it, well, some lines are not straight. So if you have an irregular line and it dips in, is that dip gonna make it so now you can't, cause it's not parallel?
I mean, if you're creating a new lot, you should be able to avoid that.
Right.
I would think in most cases, even if the lot next to you dips in, then you just follow their line to keep the 75 feet. But,
So would this be an issue of like grandfathering everybody in and then moving forward, it's gonna be, you know, whatever we decided?
yeah, it would be
To
lots,
avoid that.
lots created prior to such and such a date are, well, they'd be legally non-conforming. I mean, there's really no way of,
What happens when you
Making
go to
them
sell
legal.
that though?
there's nothing that prevents people from selling it. It's, and with single-family homes, there's actually a lot that you can do by right to alter non-conforming structures, as long as you're not encroaching into setbacks and things, which with these lots, they're gonna be pretty big and they wouldn't have an issue.
So it wouldn't harm any future,
No, not unless they wanted to do something really drastic.
tear down and rebuild or something?
Even that they could do as long as they stayed in the footprint. It's just if they want to significantly increase the size of the house, then they'd have to get the special permit, but.
Which, you know, you're not gonna prevent all that.
So what does Amherst say? Do you
I
remember?
had it and I can't, I think this is it. So, they call them flag lots. Each lot shall have an access strip with a minimum street frontage of 40 feet, a minimum width of 40 feet at any point between the street and the principal building,
That I like.
And a
I
max-
don't like the 40 feet, but I
Right.
like that.
and a maximum length of 400 feet, which is really long.
Wow, that's Amherst.
I don't think,
Right, that's pretty rural.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
don't
little
think the
different.
length matters. Why should the length matter? If I wanna live 400 feet in the middle of a,
Well, I mean, if you're going back really far, you're kind of creating a street at that point, and it's like emergency services, like how far are you from the nearest fire hydrant, that sort of
I
thing.
remember all that when we did them Great
that lot, the thing,
Yeah.
long strip down.
Yeah, and then, you know, how far are you from fire hydrant? And it's like, I mean, and people are sort of doing that at their own risk, I guess, but it's also like the first responders creates more dangerous situations for them.
It sure does. I don't wanna run 500 feet down a driveway. I'll be dead behind
You know, the very fact that many towns are having separate definitions for flag lots, I mean, indicates to me that we're not so strange.
Oh,
You know, they're a fact of life.
Yeah.
you know?
No, there were a lot. There were a
Well, I
lot.
really I like that.
The 40, that was.
The 40 feet's too thin for me, but.
Well, another part of this here
But
too
it's
says that
specific
the
then.
portion of a flag lot
Change it to
within
be
which the
or
principal
residence.
building is to be located shall be considered the building area. And they have a diagram of that too.
They use the circle, don't they?
They do the circle as far, I don't know what D is.
So if the
That
if the other one you read, was it Auburn or something? Where the circle has to fit anywhere in the building area.
So.
So if we
D
did
is
something like
equal
that,
to
the circle's
greater
gotta fit
than
anywhere
minimum
in the
lot.
And they
building
changed
area, and then we have a specific size of the pole. Boom.
Take the best of two definitions. That would work.
I kinda like this definition. It's definitive, you know?
Yeah.
That's
Do they have
what's
a
nice.
diagram too, Allison? Over there?
Yeah, they do.
They do? Could we just copy kind of what that is?
Yeah, I think it's pretty basic.
I'll look it
I like that building area
Yeah.
comment,
Right.
and the circle.
up. Yeah.
Right now, you can still use the circle, it has to be in the building area, which in, well,
And it shows right here the minimum too, like, I mean,
I- that's cut and dry.
yeah, you can't make a mistake out of that.
Right, because they
That
said.
takes care of the flag lots, it still doesn't do anything with lot width.
Right.
Right.
Because you can't stick, now you get back into that whole setback thing where the
Right.
circle is.
Right.
So can
That
we
takes,
use it?
that takes care of the flag lot.
lots? Did you guys all see this?
Frontage lots.
Yeah, that's something different, I didn't read that.
Is that the problem that we're not considered, if we just changed our wording to consider the building area?
The portion of a frontage lot within which principal buildings located shall be considered the building area. The area of a frontage lot shall be capable of containing a circle whose diameter is equal to or greater than the minimum scale. Read that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty decent too.
What does this refer to, just frontage? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I guess the issue is, what's a frontage lot? A frontage lot is not a flag lot, it's a, right? A frontage lot,
Well, it's,
Why did they say frontage lot?
I don't know, it's a little bit misleading because all lots have to have frontage,
Right,
but
that's what I was thinking.
I think it was just their way of differentiating between the two.
Well, it's actually, it's an irregular shaped lot, it is really, you could call it that. It's just non-rectangular, you know?
So could we use that?
So they
for
push the
our
building area
regular
back where the
definition?
whitest point.
I have to
the,
look.
well, the only issue
What's
with
that?
figuring
Sorry.
out lot width is irregular lots.
Yeah,
Is that an irregular lot definition you're saying?
It
That's
seems
what
like it
it
to me.
looks like.
They call it
This-
frontage lots, but.
Right, this came from Amherst, they had like a subsection for like special standards and exceptions.
would
or
that work
whatever.
for our regular lots, Allison?
I, the portion. It does, but it doesn't really do anything about,
Well, it pushes the
You're right.
circle back, which is one thing that we talked about.
right, but this doesn't contain any standards for the,
Dimensions?
yeah.
What is D?
equal
Can't read
to
it,
or
it's too
greater,
small.
D is equal to or greater than the minimum lot frontage. So their definition for flag lots assumes that they don't meet the regular frontage. Those are flag lots, these are still technically like flag lots, they have the frontage.
They have the frontage, I got you.
They have to fill out an application. Sorry.
That's why they called this out separately. So Amherst is being generous enough to allow flag lots that don't meet the minimum frontage. I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
know that,
because one of them is 40 feet, right?
right, and in that zoning district or wherever they're calling this out, it's probably, the frontage is probably a lot greater than that.
What did we decide the minimum frontage in West Springfield was, 50? Everything has to have at least 50, or is that just in commercial?
75.
75, 50 in commercial?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
So we would just change their numbers to meet ours, and we would be okay with that definition for flag lots?
I think that this isn't a definition, it's standards that
Oh,
have to be
okay.
met. It's not a definition. None of them really are defining flag lots, they're just setting specific standards for them.
So then we just go to the inside, the definitions that we're using from Webster for a flag lot? As we refer to for everything?
Well, in their purpose, the purpose of the section is to allow for optional limited development of existing lots with deep backland. I mean, I don't know that any of them really have a definition, but they use diagrams.
But we need a definition, right?
Well, we need a definition for lot width. I don't know that we really need to define flag lot if we're later on putting a diagram with flag lot next to it and then setting standards. I mean, we can, I
If you
don't,
use their flag lot diagram, just change our measurements, then all we need is to deal with lot width. Because on the flag lot, that diagram they give you shows you how to figure out width of a flag lot.
So I have a question. We had some people on the planning board when I was there that were like new developers. So he's very well versed in building. Would somebody that was brand new to construction know what a flag lot is?
They should, and if they don't, they're
Well,
gonna learn real quick.
I guess.
before they get any approval, they'd have to have an engineer
Okay.
or a land surveyor or something like that do it, so that's where the regulation would kick
I'm thinking of like
in.
that developer boy that was up on, like.
But
he
that's a
really-
guy who didn't,
He didn't really do,
he
yeah.
didn't do it
didn't
right,
know.
so that's not a good example.
No.
He tried to do it himself, which is
Right.
fine, but
But
then
that's
you
what
need
I mean
to,
with somebody,
well, that's the problem when you try doing it yourself. You're
Yeah.
gonna run into things that, no, that's not gonna work. But again, the issue is if we have cut and dry or easier defined things,
so
then.
somebody would know what a flag lot is without having it in the definition to see, I guess.
Most of the requests for a flag lot are gonna come from existing streets.
Okay.
Somebody's backyard, somebody's half side yard, half backyard. The flag lots don't really, at least in West Springfield, don't seem to come into play in new subdivisions. I noticed in the Amherst one that they mentioned new flag lots in new subdivisions. They have a section for it, but I haven't really seen that.
Okay.
yeah, a lot of the ones I read specifically precluded flag lots in new
Subdivisions,
subdivisions.
yeah.
It was only on existing
Right.
streets.
Would have to be in kind of an unusually sized parcel that would.
Yeah, and
would
in a
have
new
more or less
subdivision,
leftover land in the back or something like that. I don't see that happening a lot.
Okay.
Right, it would have to be a big piece of property where they wanna put a row of houses in the front and then a driveway in between them with lots all in the back.
Yeah,
Well,
something
right?
like that, yeah.
and that in other places has happened, I'm sure.
But again, if it'd be like, the reason I don't have a problem with that, it'd be like having a street on the other side with another row of houses.
Yeah.
Say there's a big piece of property like this, and it's all swamp over here, so they can't access this. So now they can put a big lot here, and then a 75-foot driveway and put another lot here, and do that all the way down. I don't have a problem with that as long as these
It's like making an
poles for the flag are big enough. So it would be no different than if you had a row of houses and a street here, and a row of houses and a street here. It's just that you got all the entrances on one street, which if it's not done properly, would look like a disaster. But if they had, as far as I'm concerned, 75-foot frontage, then that's what needs to be the pole. Now they got a big lot back here, so you got a house here and a house here. No different if they were two streets back to back, like this and this. Or, I'm sorry, no, whatever, you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, like this and this. It's got two houses next to each other, one comes in this way, one comes in that way. If this was the flag lot, now this guy would come in that way, and that guy would come in that way. So I don't have a problem with flag lots, but they gotta be.
I think they need to be better defined. Other
I think
people
the
don't.
only one I have a problem with is that little skinny
Right.
thing right there, that's ridiculous. Do you know?
And that's probably 25 years ago.
But like, this is kind of what we're talking about here. If this piece of property, they could do this all the way down and get twice the lots out of this piece of property, if we allow flag lots. It's a lot of tax dollars sitting there.
Do you want, okay, where did we, let's go back.
We keep intermixing them again, we really do.
Because
Maybe we should define flag lot, get that done, and then go back to lot width, because every time we start talking about lot width, we go back to that flag lot issue,
Well,
which we need to keep
I
separate.
don't think that flag lot is, the definition is the issue. I think it's what standards you want to apply to it.
Where
need
would
to
we
be.
put those in with area and use?
Right. Yes, that's, I think, the most appropriate place to put them.
So we have to create a definition for flag lot if we're gonna put different regulations in, which is fairly easy.
I don't know that you do. I think what most towns do is that they have a note that says if you don't meet the minimum width requirement, see exceptions, blah, 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 blah.
And then under exceptions, we would have two definitions, flag lots and.
Well, you would have standards that had to be met. So if you don't meet the minimum width requirement, then you have to meet all of these other things to be a buildable lot.
But we would still need two separate ones addressing irregular and flag, right?
Probably.
If you don't meet the minimum width,
Or if you don't meet the dimensional, so if you don't meet, like a note, just an asterisk that says if you don't meet the minimum dimensional requirements, see section blah for exceptions. I
well, why
would need
we
it in front
allow
of
a
me to
lot if
give
it
you.
doesn't meet the minimum width?
You don't if it, well, because you're defining width as one thing for standard lots and you're defining it differently for irregular and flag lots. You have to. You're not gonna find one thing that makes you happy with all of them. I think we've illustrated that. There has to be
Right,
a
but then
standard
you
set
wouldn't
of
say to
dimensional
somebody, hey,
requirements.
you don't meet the minimum width, whether it's a square lot or irregular lot, and then, but go to the exceptions. That doesn't make any sense to me.
May be allowed provided it meets
A different set.
different set of criteria. I don't think you can have one criteria that
It's gonna fit it
that's
all.
gonna fit all of it.
I think that I understand totally what you're saying. I'm just not sure that we shouldn't go a little bit further and just spell out flat lots and irregular lots. I mean, it's just
Irregular
two
lot's
more
gonna be a
definitions.
difficult.
So they just see it right here, or
Anything
remember
that's
how
not
we
a-
indent,
what
remember
do you
how
call
we
a
did
square
the
and a
indents and we did
Yeah.
like A and B? So if you don't meet the criteria, C, A, flag lot criteria, and B would be irregular, but I think we need to refer them somewhere and not just, like, they gotta go somewhere. See the diagram on XYZ page or something.
Alright.
It's hard, this is a
What is
hard
a,
one.
what is the technical name for a square and a rectangle?
Square and rectangle.
No,
That
there's
works.
a, like polygon
Yeah,
and
it's
something that.
polygon.
or something.
Well, it is.
I'm
it's
just
polygon.
saying, that, like, you could, that's how you define an irregular lot. If if it is not a
Right angles.
polygram, whatever that technical word is.
Well,
then it's-
polygon is any shape,
Is what?
is any shape.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something, a square and a rectangle is something. So whatever that word is, that's how you would define a regular. If
Not for.
a regular lot, if it is not a square or rectangle.
Yeah, but there's so many, I don't know that that works, because your lot is an irregular lot in that definition, but it meets all the dimensional requirements, so it's, you don't wanna call it an irregular lot, it's confusing.
So,
what if you made the, if you want to stick to the circles, so the minimum frontage, which admittedly is not lot width, is 75 feet in a residential zone. So if dimension X was 75 feet, would that work?
If you use that building site.
That's the frontage required, so.
So as
no,
for
but then they
them,
could have a
this
lot that's only 75 feet wide.
So you
Right.
need, but you need that building
doesn't work.
site, I like that.
Well, not true, because there's a area requirement also.
So this should be 75 feet and way long.
Well, then you just, then you make the frontage and lot widths the same.
There you go. But the problem is now you're not gonna make lots only 75 feet wide, it'll look
Right.
like marriage section. And you don't wanna have the frontage 150, you'll never get lots on a cul-de-sac or anything else, so.
Our frontage requirements are not a lot compared to, in our Residence A, the biggest lot requirements, still only 75 feet, whereas in other towns it would be like 100 or more. So I don't think our frontage requirements are,
Restrictive.
they're not restrictive, but I don't think they're restrictive enough to make them the same as the lot width either, so.
So would adding that building site definition somewhere so that the, I kind of think that can help clarify.
Yeah,
So the other thing too is we keep going back to the circle.
well,
Maybe, we're trying to define lot width, so it should be maybe the longest point that is at least something, you know what I'm saying? Why does it have to be a circle?
it doesn't. I gave you guys options of how to make it not the circle, but it was confusing, I think. And it
other
doesn't.
towns use the circle, so I think the circle does work,
Well-
because other places use it.
Right, but
It's just how to
there's,
get it to work.
I can promise you there's more that don't use the circle than do. If you went through every city in the state,
Is
I
that
have
because
the-
they
I have a
updated
listing.
them? Is that because they haven't updated their rules and regulations?
who knows? I think in the old days, they just plopped squares all over the place, so it wasn't an issue. Now we're getting less and less land, so you get creative to get the most amount of building lots out of your tract of land. That's where the issue comes in with irregular lots, and so, yeah, maybe you're correct. They had to update them with
Yeah.
circles or something, because now we got way more non-square or rectangle lots.
You have stuff like that.
Allison, I have to leave at 9. I just wonder, are we going back to our regular plant timing, the 19th
I
again?
can't hear.
Are we going back to the every 2 weeks?
Are we gonna start from here? Because this isn't off, because of the 4th of July, this is an off day.
Oh, okay.
Or are we meeting next week, or, I mean, I just
Don't do next week, we have planning board. It's a
Yeah,
long
we
one,
Well, just go every 2 weeks.
and it's a
So
really
before
long.
before we go to the date, let's decide where we're going, not the answer, but what do we want
Well,
to
I'm-
do?
Maureen has to
leaving.
leave, so,
Oh, okay, I'm
I thought
sorry.
the meeting's going 9.
26th,
Where the hell's my calendar?
So the next
The
one, so
twenty-sixth?
we'll go from 2 weeks from today, all right.
yeah.
Thank
If
you.
not, I'll email you.
26th?
Yeah.
Sounds like everybody's
Oh,
good with
plan.
that, so.
Where are we going?
26th, same time, same place, different date.